Denise Amber Lee shouldn't have died. Not only did she alert witnesses on 2 separate occasions, she was on the phone with 911 for more than 6 minutes. Almost every police officer was out looking for her, and still, the 21-year-old mother of 2 was brutally ripped from this earth by the worst kind of predator. A monster that should have been behind bars long before he ever set his sights on the young mother trimming her son's hair on the porch. Completely random, horrendously brutal, and absolutely preventable. Multiple people failed her, and yet Denise never stopped fighting for her life. Even in her final moments on this earth, she was intentionally leaving behind as much evidence as she could. This is the story of Denise Lee, taken right in front of her babies. Get ready to follow the trail that Denise left behind for us. Let's get into it. No matter when or where you saw Denise, she was always wearing a silver $40 ring on her right hand, given to her in high school by the boy who would eventually become her husband. That inconspicuous heart-shaped ring was the most precious thing to Denise. Nathan had gotten it for her on their first ever date, and she cherished that ring more than her engagement ring. In 2004, they graduated high school, and by 2005, they were married. In the 2 years preceding their marriage, Denise and Nathan welcomed 2 boys into the world, a young, thriving family with 2 happy boys under the age of 2. They were a picture worthy of any Hallmark card, and damn it, they were happy. That's what makes this even more tragic. Denise and Nathan were the love story and the happily ever after that most people could only dream of. Nathan worked 3 jobs to support the family. It's not like they were going hungry, but money was tight. They rented a house in Northport, Florida, which wasn't exactly the best neighborhood, but it was affordable, and their contentment with their lives made up for any inconveniences anyway. But January the 17th would shatter this blissful little family to pieces. That Thursday, Nathan got up early, kissed his sleeping wife on the forehead, and headed off to work. He called in from work just to check in at around 11. They talked about how nice it was outside, and Denise told him that she thought she'd open the windows to let the house drink in a little of that sunshine. At 3 that afternoon, Nathan called again as he was driving home, just to hear if he needed to pick up something from the store. But Denise didn't answer, and the phone continued to go to voicemail for 7 more calls. Nathan was beside himself with worry when he pulled into the driveway. Denise's car was there, the windows were closed, and the curtains drawn shut. He unlocked the front door to the sounds of his children hysterically screaming. They'd both been left in the same crib, their diapers soiled through. It was clear that they'd been alone for quite some time. That was very clear. Denise's wallet, purse, and cell phone were all in their usual places, yet there was no Denise. In less than 10 minutes, he'd scoured the house, called 911 and his father-in-law. There's a good reason that Nathan wanted his father-in-law there. Rick Goff was a retired police officer, and if you know anything about law enforcement culture, it's that they take care of their own. Rick got this ball rolling with the urgency that few missing persons cases get to have. Police weren't just searching for any missing young woman, they were searching for a woman that they considered their own sister, daughter, and wife. They were looking for their own family. A teenager visiting relatives right across the street came forward. She'd seen a dark green Camaro drive by the house 4 times, which she thought was strange enough. But when she saw it pull into the driveway opposite her house, she just assumed it was someone having trouble finding an address. The man that got out was tall, white, and heavyset. When the man leered at her for staring at him, she closed her front door and went back inside. The girl did hear the car leaving 10 minutes later and didn't think much of the exchange until she saw the street flooded with police cars. Every house in Florida recognized Denise's face by 5 that afternoon. Descriptions of the car and the man driving it were on every radio station, and every traffic officer was on the lookout. But it wasn't the police that found something first. It would be Denise herself that managed to give them their first lead. She called 911. Somehow, Denise had gotten hold of her attacker's phone and called for help. She couldn't alert him to the fact that she had the phone, so she tried desperately to add as much information into that call as she possibly could. Over the phone, the dispatcher could hear Denise pleading with her attacker to see her children and husband again, begging for him to let her go. Through her deeply distressing pleading, Denise managed to discreetly slip in her name, her address, and even gave the operator enough clues to know that she was blindfolded and being driven in a car. During the 6-minute call, Denise said the word please 17 times. The phone pinged off a nearby cell phone tower, leading several patrol cars to that general area. They immediately got the records that it was registered to a man named Michael King, a very disturbed individual. King was a 36-year-old unemployed plumber who'd spent the past few months slowly working himself up to do the unthinkable. He'd suffered a traumatic brain injury as a child in a sledding accident, severely impeding his intellect. It's been determined that his IQ landed somewhere in the 70s or low 80s. He was definitely a functional adult, but barely so. In the past year, he'd gone through a divorce, never saw his 12-year-old son anymore, and lost his job. His house was about to be foreclosed, and everything in King's life was falling apart. Instead of seeking employment, he'd been spiraling into a deeply disturbing behavior pattern that should have been reported long before he ever came across Denise. King had been stalking several women and was seen skulking around apartment complexes. He'd indecently exposed himself to women on 2 occasions, yet these incidents were never reported. After this case blew up, many witnesses came forward with increasingly alarming behavior from him, including keying a neighbor's car, destroying residents' property, and even sexually assaulting a woman who never went to the police either. He was a well-known peeping Tom, and women in the neighborhood avoided him whenever they could. Why no one said anything is very perplexing. This monster could have been off the streets long ago if someone had just spoken up. Michael King was a disaster waiting to happen, and multiple people had the opportunity to stop him from doing what he was about to do. If only they said something. Shortly after 6 that evening, a strange call came in. It was from a woman who claimed that her father went out to lend his cousin, the very Michael King that police were looking for, a shovel, a gas can, and a flashlight. King told his cousin, named Harold Muxlow, that his lawnmower was stuck in a ditch and he needed the shovel and flashlight to get it out, as well as gas to fill it back up again. While Harold handed King the items, a clearly distressed woman tried to get out of the green Camaro, screaming that someone should call the cops. King told Harold that this was nothing and shoved her back into the back seat before driving off again. How this man didn't react is beyond me, but it obviously bothered him enough that he called his daughter, who was wise enough to call 911 about it. But it gets worse. 10 minutes after the call, and just as police were sending out cars to King's residence, a woman stalled at a traffic light, heard frantic screaming coming from the back seat of the green Camaro parked next to her. She called 911 to report what she believed to be a possible child abduction. It was the darkening light. Denise looked like a child, screaming for her help and banging on the window, desperate to get someone's attention. The incredibly brave civilian put her car into gear and charged after them while on the phone with emergency services. Calm, cool, and completely focused on getting what she thought was a child out of a predator's clutches. Her name is Jean Kowalski, and she's a damn hero. But King realized that he was being followed and managed to lose his tail on the highway. Unfortunately, maddeningly, the dispatchers taking the call completely dropped the ball on this. Several of the dispatchers were just jumping in on the call all at the same time, causing absolute chaos, and during that mad scramble to get more information out of Mrs. Kowalski, everyone just assumed that someone else had put this information out to the police, yet no one had. You can call it expectation bias or an unfortunate accident, but I'll call it what it is, a deplorable lack of structure and discipline that resulted in a young mother's death that now had 2 opportunities to be prevented. When police arrived at King's house at 7 that evening, they found a nearly empty house with no King and no Denise inside. The place was barely furnished, with only a single TV on top of a box in the living room, no other furniture, and almost no utensils in the kitchen. If they didn't know any better, they'd have thought that the house was not lived in at all. In one of the back rooms, they found a single blanket on the floor, a hair tie, 2 pieces of duct tape with brown hairs in them, and a towel with obvious semen stains on it. The hair was later confirmed to belong to Denise. Every exit in Northport was manned by traffic officers looking for a green Camaro. Canines were released into every abandoned building and open field that they could find. There were helicopters in the air searching for the car from the sky, and every available officer, not to mention a few civilians, were out on the streets. At 9:16, King and his Camaro were stopped at a traffic point just as he was about to leave the county. Denise was not in the car, and officers knew just by looking at King that she probably wasn't alive anymore. His boots and jeans were soaked and covered in mud, the same mud that caked the shovel. It was clear that King had just buried something. Inside the car was his burner phone that Denise used to call for help, its SIM card removed. Denise's blood was found on the back seat and the hood of the car, and tucked in between the seat cushions was a small silver heart-shaped ring. Denise had taken it off and stowed it away, hoping that someone could find the man that she knew was about to kill her. She'd also ripped out her own hair, careful to tear out the roots with it, and shoved it into the seat too. Denise did everything in her power to leave as much of her DNA in that car, knowing that if she wasn't going to get out alive, then she'd at least bring the monster that took her from her boys down. Denise had screamed, she begged, she alerted 2 separate people, she called 911. She did everything she could have done, everything she should have done. Despite all of her efforts, she was buried in the swamp somewhere, and the man who'd done this terrible thing to her was spinning a wild tale of being abducted by 2 strange men who'd stolen his car. King was a rambling mess, and he wasn't going to start telling the truth anytime soon. So the search commenced. Even in a place that's as densely inhabited as Northport, this is still Florida. Denise could be anywhere, but no matter how grim the reality was for searchers, they still held out for a miracle. If anyone had a chance to survive this, it would be Denise, who'd fought her captivity with every ounce of her being. 2 days after her abduction, scent dogs found a trail in Plantation Boulevard, an upscale area that had wide spaces of wilderness between properties. And there they found mounds of disturbed earth. There, in the swamps, was Denise's remains, and evidence on her body was starkly clear. She'd been absolutely brutalized. The coroner counted 20 injuries, but those were not what killed her. After being assaulted and beaten, Denise was shot point blank in the head before being buried in a shallow grave. In the same area, they found a pair of her husband's boxers, a favorite that Denise liked to wear. Both the boxers and Denise's remains had traces of seminal fluid that would later be traced back to King. The boys were just babies, so they couldn't give police a description of the events that transpired, but judging by the chain of events, we can make some educated guesses. Denise was out on the back porch giving her oldest son a haircut when Michael King, who'd been scoping neighborhoods for a target for weeks, drove by. He held Denise at gunpoint, and somehow she'd convinced him to only take her after she put them together in the crib, where they'd be safe. She even managed to lock the door, knowing that her sons were safer inside a locked house until their father came home. King then drove her to his house, assaulted and beat her. When he was done, he forced Denise back into the car, where she managed to make the call to 911, attempt an escape when he stopped to collect the shovel and flashlight, and even managed to alert the woman at the traffic light. After he'd executed her in the swamp, he then tried to flee the county. It took the jury only 2 hours to find Michael King guilty of kidnapping, sexual battery, and first-degree murder. Oh, but it gets better. This is Florida, and that verdict comes with a death sentence. Sometimes when I have my misgivings about the death penalty, a perverted slimeball like King comes along and I forget all about being against it. Many have tried to argue that he had diminished mental facilities due to his lower than average IQ and his head injury. But the fact is, King was smart enough to get his qualifications as a plumber. He got married and lived a relatively normal life until a year before killing a 21-year-old woman who'd never heard a fly. He spent weeks planning, stalking, and building up to this. King knew exactly what he was doing, and if it hadn't been Denise, it would have been someone else. At least Denise made sure that her last actions on this earth made his guilt in a court of law irrefutable. The animal that destroyed Nathan and his son's lives does not deserve to live. Denise was the one who deserved to live. She deserved to raise her boys, to shower her family with all of the love she had so much of, and to spend her life with her high school sweetheart. Denise Amber Lee's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how crucial every second can be. It's a testament to bravery, to love, and most of all, it's proof that you need to speak up when you see something, anything, suspicious. If someone was brave enough to speak back then, well, then we wouldn't be here talking about a woman who did everything she could to survive. Or do you agree with the criticism that the death penalty is too harsh? Let me know in the comments below. Here on Evidence Obscured, the conversation is of the utmost importance. It's how we keep the victims' memories alive. Don't forget Denise. And don't forget to speak up. And don't forget, a like and a subscribe goes a long way too. See you in the next one. Cheers.